This video is going to be about the place of refuge. That's why I called my channel on YouTube The Place of Refuge, because of a series of dreams that I had that led me to this area. And I'm going to read the account now exactly as I wrote it at the time. A factual account of my dreams. While staying in the home of some friends in Bethel Springs, Tennessee, I awoke in the early morning hours of November 1st, 1998. I prayed to God in a very sincere and heartfelt way to show me where the people of God, believers in Jesus, could go. I desired to find a place of refuge where the land would be both cheap and good. I fell asleep and dreamed of two doorways. On the right there was a sign that read nursery. I then woke up. I fell asleep again and dreamed the word Wellington, and then woke up. I fell asleep again for the third time and saw a man who said, "I worked in Bottle Creek." I then woke up. I thought to myself, where are these places? I fell asleep for the fourth time and saw the word Texas. I then woke up and did not go to sleep again. I had not been thinking about Texas, nor would I have given it any serious consideration. When my wife Rachel awoke in the morning, I told her about the dreams. When I got up in the morning, I first told one of my friends about the dreams, but I did not tell her the third dream about Bottle Creek, as it seemed too specific and I did not believe that it existed. We got a road atlas and looked up Wellington, Texas. And there it was, to our surprise. My other friend read about the area in the encyclopedia, but it did not sound favorable. Since it was close to Interstate 40, I decided to go there on the way home to Arizona. We went to Wellington and found a large farming area of cheap land. Later in Arizona, I thought, why don't I look up nursery in the road atlas? To my amazement, there it was, close to Victoria, Texas. I then decided to go to the library and use the internet to see if there were names of bodies of water in the U.S. I looked this up under U.S. Geological Survey and found that there were creeks named Bottle Creek, but none in Texas. I saw that there was one in Tillman County, Oklahoma, close to Wellington, Texas, 81 miles southeast, and found that it started between Frederick and Davidson, Oklahoma, being about 7 miles long, a very short distance from the Texas border, and ran into the Red River that is the border, 3.33 miles east of Highway 183-70. where it crosses the Red River into Oklahoma. I was overcome with fear and joy because I thought only the Lord could have revealed this to me. I made a trip to the Bottle Creek area and found cheap and plentiful farmland. I also went to the nursery area and found that the land was more expensive but good. As I looked at a Texas map, I decided to draw lines from place to place because of the angle from Wellington to Bottle Creek that follows the Red River. The lines went on each side of Austin, the capital of Texas. I thought that anywhere within this triangle must be a good place to go. As I studied this area of Texas, it seemed very favorable except for the summer heat. I'll stop reading my account at this point, and you can see the triangle on the map in front of you, and I'll bring it up. I'll point out that it's almost, actually part of this triangle is in the center of the United States and in the southern portion. I'll bring it much closer. Now, that white area that I just put in will define it easily for you. You can easily see it. It almost divides Texas in half. This is the Red River, This is where Bottle Creek ends in the Red River. So it's only 81 miles from this area to this area. And I'll read the dimensions on these two sides when I get to the end. I want to bring something else in at this point. Later, I discovered that if I take this longest line and divide it in half and draw a line across, and I take this shorter line and draw a line across, there's an area in the center which is very nearly the area that I was shown, or later on in the dream account that I'm going to read about. It's slightly smaller, but all the sides are almost identical, very close to a square. The top one is, I think it might be 3 miles wider than the bottom, but it's very nearly a square. Now I'm going to continue reading my account. On the night of December 20th, 1998, when I went to bed, I prayed that God would show me the exact place to go within this triangle. Sometime in the night or the early morning of December 21st, I dreamed of a vast and beautiful landscape that stretched out before me. There were very large trees. I desired it very much, but I didn't know where it was, and it seemed as if no one wanted to tell me. I saw or heard the number 3200, 3200, and thought that it might be the acreage. In the next part of the dream, I was in a room with many people, and then saw a woman who said, "Father left home and got stung by bees." The next part of the dream took place in what I thought was a corral. There was a wagon bed, and on it a cash register tape of all the sales that were made, many hundreds or thousands, I thought. I was asked if I wanted to buy steaks. I knew it was Friday and didn't want to have them delivered on Saturday and have to pay for them. Looking at a map the next morning, I discovered a place called Bee House within the triangle. After much thought, I decided that the next part of the dream about the corral was showing me that this is a livestock producing area, which it is. Bee House would mark the southern boundary of a large rectangle. The next night I awoke from my sleep and began to think about the 3200. It occurred to me that it must be the 32nd degree latitude line. In the morning when I checked it on the map, there it was, the very next latitude line north of Bee House. Okay, I'm going to stop with my account and add those lines. So the bottom line is the B, comes across the area as Bee House, Texas. And the top line marks the top line to define the area. This series of dreams, actually it was just one dream divided into 3 parts. And I want to point out that it complemented perfectly the first dream. The first dream was 4 separate dreams in the morning that defined the large triangle, and the next dream that had 3 parts defined the area within the triangle, a rectangle within a triangle. And as I said before, this area that I showed you here within it I got that by dividing this line in half and this line in half and just drawing across. So I'm going to take that out right now. I discovered that much later. So this is the actual area here defined as the refuge. I'll get that up a little closer for you now. Okay, now I'm going, and I also want to point out that in this account, I said in the dream that I saw very large trees. And this is important because when I came to this area and bought the property that I now have, across the street from me are large pecan trees, native pecan trees, huge, that take 2 people or more to put their arms around them and extending up 100 or more feet tall. Now I'm going to continue with my reading. In the evening of December 31st, I prayed that God would finish this by letting me find a place in this area. That night I dreamed I saw a map of the United States and I was frantically searching for the right place. I saw a star over this area, and when I got close to it, it seemed to move or twinkle. I knew then, in the dream, that I had found the right place. The center of the large triangle is close to the center of the smaller rectangle, and very close to being the center of the USA from east to west. By that, I'm going to stop now and explain this. By that I mean, if I draw a line like I did, and I found the center of this area, as I showed you previously, let's see, center line, the center of this, and then the previously the way that I also found the center of the half line. Maybe this is it. Yeah, okay. This is the half line, make half the triangle. It looks like a jumbled mess, but the idea is that they just about are on exact centers. Sure, they're not perfect, but okay, now I'll leave it like that. X marks the spot. That's the area that we're talking about. I would also like to point out every time I prayed I had a dream. So now I'm going to continue reading after I saw this star that defined the area. On February 1st, 1999, I drove to Texas to see this area for the first time. I found a mission for alcoholics and drug addicts in Pottsville, Texas, that is close to the center of the rectangle. The man in charge, Willie, invited me to stay there. I was very impressed with the work, and my faith in the power of the Word of God to change lives was renewed. I looked around the southern part of the rectangle, mostly, and visited realtors. I didn't find anything that I wanted to buy. On March 1st, 1999, I drove to this area again. I was more determined than before to find a place. I spent my time around Pottsville and Hamilton, Texas. I came close to buying 53 acres, but couldn't bring myself to do it. I felt that God should reveal the exact place to me if He was really in this. When I got back home, I felt that these trips were probably a waste of time and money, but I knew it was worth the effort if anything came out of it. On the night of March 20th, I again prayed for God to show me the exact place to go. I awoke in the morning and didn't remember that I had dreamed anything. The thought came to me that I would like to live around the town of Comanche and not the town of Gustine. Then I remembered the dream. It took place in front of a school building, and there were antiques there. When I saw them, I said that this is the place that I had dreamed of, but of course it wasn't. There was a young boy that had a very small wagon made of stone. I said that these things were from the 1700s. I asked him where the things came from, and he said they came out of the gym. I asked him if they were free. He said no. I then asked him what he paid for his wagon, and he said $5. There was another small wagon that was made of wood. It tilted up so that it looked like an empty picture frame. I could only see the bottom part of it as the top was behind a table. The bottom was shaped like a heart or the outline of the state of Texas like you see on the road signs. The wagon was then on its wheels and a large book was on it. As I paged through the book at its top corner, I could see paintings of beautiful tree branches. The book was full of paintings of scenery, and I thought my daughter Mary would like it. I looked in the front of the book for a price, and there was a round sticker that had 360 written on it. As I stepped back to decide if I wanted to buy it, the boy reached over and grabbed the handle of the wagon to claim it. He held the handle of his wagon in his right hand. That was the end of the dream. As I looked over a county map, I saw roads marked in the 300s. Then I saw County Road 360 going north out of Gustine for a few miles and ending in County Road 591. That then ends shortly in County Road 1702. I thought this must be the answer to my prayer because the dream was so rich in symbolism. But I knew that if I accepted it as true, I would limit myself to this road instead of the larger area where I could easily find a place. On April 11th, I went to Texas to see this county road. On the morning of the 12th, I drove the length of the road several times, but saw nothing for sale. There were very beautiful spots on the road, long tunnels of trees to drive through, completely covering the road by the Leon River. It was all forested. It was the most scenic place I had seen in this part of Texas. Because I found nothing for sale, I was very disappointed, to put it mildly. I then went on to Tennessee with my son Obed, who was following me in his car. I wanted to visit my friends and do some business there. I went back through Texas on the way home on April 19th. I had seen a property for sale on County Road 1476, where the other end of the 591 ends. I made them an offer and then left for Arizona. They turned down my offer, but came back with a counteroffer. By this time, I had decided that the property was not suitable for me. Once again, I was left hopeless. Okay, I'll stop here and mention that the County Road 360 that I figured was the place that I was supposed to buy something, a piece of property on, is only about 5 miles long. So it's a very short road. Now I'm going to continue reading. On May 6th, I prayed again, but this time I was very negative toward God and said that this was it for dreams, and that if anything was going to happen, it had to happen now. That night, or close to morning, I dreamed of a pile of large rocks that were to the left, and a huge, perfectly round boulder, bigger than a person, to the right. It was cut in half, but the other half was not there. There was a person between them that would go on the pile of rocks and then toward the boulder. They didn't know what to do, as they were totally confused. Then another person that I could only see from the back of their head said, "No, it's not there," meaning the pile of rocks. and it's not there either, meaning the boulder. There is a table carved out of the rock, meaning the other half of the boulder. It's back there on your land. Go and see. It's back there. You'll see. The person between the pile of rocks and the boulder finally understood what was said. When I awoke in the morning, I told my wife that my mind was playing tricks on me, and then I told her the dream. I thought, I will go back for the last time, and if nothing is there, I will go to Tennessee and on to Missouri to look for land, as my friend was buying a place there. I left for Texas 2 days later on May 9th. As I turned onto County Road 360 from Route 36 in the morning of the 10th, I thought there probably wouldn't be anything different, but I still hoped. I drove to the first corner where I expected to find something, but nothing was there. I turned right. Then at the next corner I turned left. By this time I was getting upset, but thought since I am going on to Missouri, it wasn't a wasted trip. As I drove a little way ahead, I saw a new sign on the bank to my left, First Call Realty. I was so surprised and said this must be it. I drove to the end of the 360 to see if anything else was for sale, but there wasn't. I went to see the realtor in Comanche. When she told me the price and all about the property, I went back to talk with the owner. I went back to the realtor and made an offer, which she suggested I do instead of giving them what they wanted. I went back to Arizona and waited for an answer. They made a counteroffer, which I accepted. The property is 37.849 acres. It is all fenced with a 6-wire barbed wire fence in good condition. There is an irrigation well in the center of the property, about 100 feet deep, and a 5-horsepower pump that produces about 80 gallons per minute non-stop, even in one of the worst droughts ever. The soil type is one of the best in this area for raising produce. About 30 acres is as flat as a table, but the property in front of us is not. On June 10th, 1999, we moved here, and the Lord has miraculously sustained us. Come and see where the Lord has led me. This is a true and factual account of my dreams. I believe God is the author and source because of both the complexity and need for this information, and because it was an answer to my prayers to know a place of refuge for Christians. See Matthew 24:29, Luke 21:36, Revelation 3:10, Revelation 12:6, 14 to 17, Psalms 9, verse 9, Psalms 27, Psalms 33, 18, and 19. I don't know if there will be a soon coming tribulation, but I do know these dreams are true. And he said, Hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in all mine house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches. And the similitude of the Lord shall he behold. Wherefore then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? Numbers 12:6-18. And I just read this verse to say that by dreams, God reveals things to us, and it certainly appears that these are dreams that are true. So this area that I'm calling now the refuge, I'm going to get closer to. it occupies 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like 6 different counties of Texas. I can't get too much closer. The town of Hamilton is about here, and the town of Comanche is somewhere in this area on both corners. There are no large cities. Everything is just very few towns, and it's very small population in this area. I'm going to read some more that I've written about this area. The area is in the southern half of the United States, about dead center. The center of the U.S., east to west, is just before entering the town of Comanche, where Route 36 hits Route 67 at 98.35 degrees. This area seems about as perfect as it can get, with no large cities or towns. How could I ever have imagined these place names that would render such unbelievable results and enclose such an area? I understand there is only one town in the whole world named Nursery, and I correctly placed it in Texas. I have never heard of it before I dreamed it. I never heard of Wellington, Texas before I dreamed it. I never heard of Bottle Creek before I dreamed it, nor could I have ever seen it on a map unless it was a local topographical map of the area, which I had never seen before. Who could imagine the long, thin triangle that divides most of Texas in half? And I'll read this again about dividing it. If you divide the longest line of this triangle in half and draw a connecting line east to the shortest line, and then divide the shortest line in half and draw a connecting line west to the longest line, you would have most of the refuge enclosed. That's what I did in the beginning. This is the part that I live in. All of this information was found out from the first 4 dreams that I had on November 1st, 1998. What is the probability of that happening by chance? In other words, how could it just be something that I associated with and came up with this that rendered such results? Do it yourself and see if the outcome is not the same as mine. I will be waiting to hear from you, or better yet, move here to the refuge before it is too late. If you could only believe it, how wonderful it would be. Now, I have some contact information here that I'm not going to give out on this. The 2 longest sides of the large triangle form an angle of about 6.54 degrees, or slightly more. The angle at the top of the triangle is about 33.15 degrees. The longest side of the triangle is 447 miles. The next longest side is about 381 miles, and the shortest side is 81 miles. See the picture below, or the picture on Google Earth. The rectangle that defines the refuge is about 46 miles long on the west side, 44 miles long on the east side, 27 miles long on the north side, and 22 miles long on the south side. Anyone can do these measurements on Google Earth. The coordinates from the USGS, United States Geological Survey, are Nursery, Texas, 285524 north, 970554 west. Wellington, Texas, 345122 north, 1001248 west. Bottle Creek, 341233 north, 990125 West. Now I'm going to show you something else that is quite unbelievable about this, that I also discovered much later. I'm going to bring this up for you to see it closer now. Where that little yellow marker, which is close to the center of this area, says temple site. By that I mean that this spot is exactly on the latitude line that passes from the temple site or the Temple Mount, the Dome of the Rock, in Israel, clear across the world, obviously, but it passes right through this area. And I've kind of found some kind of something in this area here, so I've marked it as the temple site. It's just either a natural or a man-made, I don't know what it is, stone, or if it's some kind of tanks that they were digging. I don't know, but this is the actual temple site in this area. Well, for Christians, this is, well, how could it be? Now I'm going to also put a map up of Israel so that you can see this right over the area. Mark temple site. I'm going to back it off. Jerusalem. I'm going the wrong direction. I'm going to back this off so you can see. So this area, the area of Jerusalem, passes very close to the center of the refuge, the latitude line. And you'll see this is an exact positioning of where the country of Israel would come within the state of Texas. I just cut it out, picked it up, and brought it over here. The bottom tip almost touches San Antonio, Texas, and the top is a little bit, I mean, not a lot, but, you know, above Dallas, Texas. But the actual area of Jerusalem and the temple site for the latitude would be only 5 miles from where I live. The temple site marked on the map is at the same latitude, 314640 north, as the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, Israel. What a strange coincidence. So with that, I'm going to end my reading. And, well, I don't know what to say. It's for everyone else to judge it, but, you know, how could, if this is not for real, if this is not the place of refuge that God has chosen for Christians to come to, then why would I have these dreams? Some have said, well, it's just for you. But it's so dynamic. It's so unbelievable. You can see what the results are. I mean, this is true. The account's true. I'm making nothing up. Why? So here it is. You judge it. Thanks for watching, and please make comments.